Hi, and welcome to my first ever booktube video. One of my New Year's resolutions for 2024 was to actually start a channel and make probably very occasional videos. I'm not going to promise any consistency, but I want to do this, and so I'm taking the leap, I'm taking the step and making videos. And I thought, what better way to start a channel and to get to know someone than by going through the top 10 books of 2023. So here are my top 10 favorites. These are the books that I would recommend to anyone, that I enjoyed the most, that I had the most fun reading, and that have stayed on my mind, that I can't stop thinking about. And so let's go through them. The first one I chose is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. This one is such a dark story, but I loved it so much. It's about a student. She's about 15 years old, and she starts to have a romantic relationship and also a sexual relationship with her teacher, who is much older. And she believes that they're really in love, that this is a real love story, and she thinks that this is appropriate. And then 15 years into the future, she's about 30, she finds out that another student has come forward and spoken out against the misconduct of this teacher and said that she was abused. And now Vanessa in this book has to kind of figure out what her relationship with this teacher was, and if it was real love or if it was maybe also a story of abuse. And she has to kind of come to terms with everything that happened to her. And there's such beautiful quotes in this about, if everything was a lie, is your whole past self a lie? If this was abusive, what does that make you? What does that say about your personality, and what does that say about the trauma that you went through? And so I think this book is really, really beautiful, and definitely look up the trigger warnings because it is a heavy one, but if you're interested in those things, then I would definitely recommend this one. The next book is actually two books, and I want to talk about Ninth House and Hellbent. I reread Ninth House this year. I did read it in 2019, I think, but I reread it this year, and I absolutely fell in love with the story. I loved it so much, and then I read Hellbent, and it was even better. It's everything I want from a fantasy. It's set at a university, it's set at Yale University, and it's about the kind of secret societies of Yale and the magic that they do. And we follow Alex Stern. She is a student at Yale. She kind of is not from a privileged background. She got in, I think, on a scholarship, and she is part of the Ninth House, and they are kind of the protectors of the secret society. They're kind of the judges. They look that the secret societies do nothing illegal, that they're not killing people, and she gets wrapped up in this massive kind of magical, I don't even know how to describe it, in this magical adventure. And it's so dark, it's such a dark fantasy. It gets so dark at times, and it's so suspenseful, and it's so good. It's so perfect. I think Leigh Bardugo created the perfect fantasy environment, and learning about the secret societies is so much fun. So I would highly recommend this if you haven't picked it up yet and you kind of dark academia but also fantasy. This is perfect. The next book, now we're getting into my thriller phase, because I had a massive thriller phase this year. I read so many thrillers. I think I read about 20. So there were a lot, and a lot of them were really good. And one of my favorites was The Kind Worth Killing by Peter Swanson. This is such a fun thriller. It's about these two people who meet at an airport, and they're on the same airplane, and they start to talk, and the man tells the woman, Lily, that he kind of wants to murder his wife. And she's like, go for it. Why don't you do it? What's stopping you? And so they plan together to murder his wife. And because they don't really have any other relation other than being on the same flight, they're the perfect accomplices for this crime, because no one would ever figure out that they would even know each other. And so they get wrapped up in planning this murder, but a lot of things go wrong, a lot of things go right, things happen, and this was one of the most unpredictable books I've ever read. I could not have seen the way that this would turn coming, like, in a million years. I would not have expected this. So this was really, really good. And it makes me really excited to read more thrillers like this. This really brought me into my thriller phase. I loved this. Another thriller that I really enjoyed was In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. This one was another one that's kind of like dark academia inspired. Not that it's real dark academia, but it's about these friends who go to a college reunion, and back when they were at college, one of their friend group was murdered and another one in the friend group was arrested for it. And so their friend group has suffered a lot. But they go to this college reunion, obviously minus the two people, one of them dead, one of them arrested. And they kind of figure out that maybe the person who was arrested for the murder is not the one who actually committed the crime. And so the whole book, we follow this friend group, both back in college and at the college reunion, and we try to figure out who actually committed this crime, probably out of the friend group. So it's very much just like really, really, really fun and really, really, really suspenseful, and you can kind of guess along with the characters. And I really enjoyed this. I think it was really well written. I really got to know the characters and I felt like a part of the friend group. I always love tales about friend groups because I think there's always so many like dynamics in a friend group, because yes, they're friends, but some of them secretly hate each other, some of them are exes, some of them have secrets from each other, and that makes it so much fun to read this book. Okay, then I read what I would probably call my favorite book of the year. I think I'm gonna crown this my favorite, and that was Penance by Eliza Clark. This is wonderful. If you haven't read this yet, be ready for the most disturbing stuff you read. Like in the first chapter, already the first chapter made me feel sick, like physically sick, but I was obsessed with this. It's kind of written as if it was a true crime story about these three like high school aged girls. I think they're like 15, 16, 17, around that, who murder one of their classmates. They put one of their classmates into like a beach house and set the beach house on fire, and she dies like a really tragic death. And we follow kind of like a portrait of these three girls who were arrested or like who were convicted of this crime, and what kind of led them to murdering one of their classmates. And it's written like a true crime story, so it's written like a real like scientific portrayal. But we actually find out in the foreword that the author of this book, or the author of that true crime book, is really unreliable and had a lot of scandals, that he kind of embellished the story and that he kind of faked a lot of the details. So it's a really unreliable narrator because we cannot really trust everything that this man writes, and we have to kind of keep in mind that we don't know what exactly happened and what is real. We can just kind of follow what he said. And it's such a good critique of true crime. So I think if you kind of like true crime, but you're also against sort of the exploitation of crimes for true crime, this would be really good for you. And I really love this. And this is on my mind like almost every day. I loved this one. Okay, next is one that I don't have physically because I read it on Kindle, but I can show you the cover, I think. And that was No Exit by Taylor Adams. This one, oh my god, this is like a classic thriller. This is the one that you think of when you think of like classic thriller. It's so suspenseful and it had me so scared for my life at points. It's about a girl who travels home for Christmas. She drives home in her car and she ends up in like a really big snowstorm, and she gets snowed in at this gas station rest stop kind of vibe that's completely abandoned except for her and then like these handful of other people that are also stuck in the snow at this rest stop. And one time when she goes out to her car to like get something from her car, she realizes that in one of the other cars a child is kidnapped. So she is stuck at a rest stop with a kidnapper, with no phone signal, no way to get away, like no way to drive away, no way to call help. with a potential kidnapper. Well, a confirmed kidnapper. And she doesn't know who it is. So she has to figure out who this kidnapper is, how to help this child, and how to fucking stay alive. This was so suspenseful. Like, this was one of my favorite thrillers of the year, and I still think about it because, oh my god, the suspense of this book. It was insane. It was actually really insane. I loved this. I read this in, I think, pretty much one sitting. I think it's one of the best, like, bingeable thrillers, and it was so, so good. And I also read Taylor Adams' new release, which was The Last Word, I think. But I liked No Exit more. I think No Exit was a lot more, like, realistic and, like, high stakes. And what I loved about it is that the main character makes the same decisions that I would have made. Like, she's not, like, a dumb main character. No, I was like, I would have done the same thing. Like, I would act the same way. And I think it was through that just really realistic, and it was so suspenseful. Like, I still get shivers, like, thinking about the book. So really, really good one. Okay, I think those were all of my thrillers. So now let's get into some romances that I really liked. The first one, of course, being Happy Place. I loved Happy Place. I think it's so deserved as, like, one of the best romances of the year because it's so fun. I love a second chance romance. I feel like Wynne and Harriet are some of my favorite characters that Emily Henry has written. I really, really love their romance, and I just love a second chance romance. I think I always love hearing about characters that were kind of right person but at the wrong time, and that reconnect and figure out their problems, find a solution. I think it's such a beautiful, beautiful story, and I really, really like this. Do I have any memory of it, of the plot? Not really, but I know that it was like beach vibes, summer vibes, and romance, and I love that. I think this might be my favorite Emily Henry, maybe tied with Book Lovers. Book Lovers was also really good, but I think Emily Henry just really improves with her characters and, like, her stories every time that she writes a book. I think you can really see her, like, getting even better, and I think she's just one of the best romance writers at the moment. She deserves the hype. I think the hype's deserved. Then next we have a queer romance. I love a queer romance, and that is obviously Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Harry Blake. I think what I loved about this is it felt so realistic. This romance book felt like it could really happen, and a lot of the times with romances I feel like they're just very unrealistic. A lot of the times I feel like a romance book is just a bit too perfect, like they fall in love a bit too quickly, or their relationship just is too perfect, or it follows too much of the standard arc of falling in love and then the third act conflict and then they break up and then they get back together. And, like, a lot of books have that perfect kind of very fake thing to it, and this one didn't. This one felt real. This one felt so funny and so realistic and just perfect, and I really enjoyed it. We follow Delilah Green, who goes back to her hometown, to her family, who she doesn't really like because her sister is gonna get married, and she doesn't really want to spend a lot of time with her family, but she goes to this bar and she sees one of her sister's friends and really likes her. And the story continues from there about these two kind of very unlikely girls getting together and actually falling in love, and it's so beautiful, and I cannot wait to continue the series in 2024. And the last romance that I want to talk about is The Right Move by Liz Tomford. I don't have a physical copy of this because I read it on Kindle Unlimited, and then I cancelled my Kindle Unlimited, so I don't even have that anymore. But this book lives in my heart. I loved it. I think Ryan Shea is the perfect book boyfriend. And kind of what I said about Delilah Green is true for The Right Move, that it's a bit too perfect, but it's like the perfect escapism. Like, it's the perfect romance book. And if I was to fall in love with a famous athlete, I would want it to be Ryan Shea because he's so perfect. He's so amazing. I want him. I'm currently so single and desperate for Ryan Shea, so Ryan Shea, call me up. No, I loved The Right Move. It's the second book in the Windy City series by Liz Tomford, and it's about these famous athletes and them falling in love with, like, a normal girly. And Ryan falls in love with his sister's best friend, Indy. Indy doesn't have a place to stay because she found out that her boyfriend was cheating on her, and so she breaks it off, but she has nowhere to stay. She doesn't really have a lot of money to pay for an expensive Chicago apartment, and so her best friend says, well, you can live with my brother Ryan, because Ryan has this big apartment, but he doesn't really have a social life. He's very much like living for his job, for his career, and he doesn't really have friends. He doesn't really have a social life, and he wants to become like, I think the leader of his team. But to be that, he has to become a bit more of a social person. And so they start fake dating to show that he is really like a team player, that he can be like an emotional person, that he can have emotions and he can show them. So they start fake dating. And this turns into the most perfect romance I've ever read. Like, I'm ride or die for them. I love them. And the last book I want to talk about is, of course, Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare. Since this is my first video, you will not know this, but I'm a massive ride or die Cassandra Clare stan. I think I have read a book by Cassandra Clare every single year since 2013, and this year I read this one. This is the last book in the Last Hours series, which is the trilogy that follows the children of like Tessa, Jem, Will, their generation. And they might be like some of my favorite characters ever. You can see that this is a big one. So there's a lot of like space to explore their characters. And I think that was just really, really perfect in this book because we are so deep in the friend group. And I'm so obsessed with the characters. Like Matthew, I love him. Cordelia, I love Cordelia. I love James. I love Lucy. I love all of the characters in this book. And I think Cassandra Clare is one of those writers that just improves with every book. I feel like you can see her growth so much within the Shadowhunter series. Like, the City of Bones books, they're not really good. The Mortal Instruments, I wouldn't call them great writing. But like this is her having like written probably 20 Shadowhunter books. She's so far in and she has improved so much, and I was obsessed with this. Like, I really, really loved this so much. I think it was a good finale. I know a lot of people disliked it. I know a lot of people found it really underwhelming. I think it was a good finale, not a great one. I think it was really solid and it tied up all of like my questions and loose ends, and I think it was a worthy finale, but I did expect a little bit more. But I can't really say too much about the plot without spoiling it. But if you are a Cassandra Clare fan, you've probably read this, and I really liked it. Was it as good as the first two in the trilogy? No, but I feel like a lot of Cassandra Clare's finales are not as good as the first and second book in her trilogies. But overall, still great. And like, I think Cassandra Clare books will always land on my favorite lists because it's just my favorite author and my favorite like universe in the whole world. And so I think I had to include this. Although I can't really say anything about the plot because it's so far in the universe, but if you've read it, you will know. Okay, that was it. Those were all of the 10 books that I wanted to talk about. Thank you so much for watching. Sorry if this was all a bit nervous and maybe not as smooth as it could have gone. It is my first video. It's the first time I've ever tried filming a video, and so hopefully my talking will improve. Hopefully the quality of the videos will improve. Let me know what you want to see. I'm thinking of filming a booktube newbie tag next because I think that's great to like kind of like get to know me and to talk about my goals for the channel, because as I said, probably this will only be like a very sporadic channel, very few uploads because I am a master's student and so I have a lot to do in my life and I should probably be studying right now, but let's ignore that. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting me on this little journey. And hopefully, fingers crossed, I will see you very, very soon for maybe a booktube newbie tag, maybe a book haul, maybe a reading vlog. I really want to vlog. I think my actual goal is to do reading vlogs and like university vlogs. I think that is my main goal for the channel because I cannot guarantee that I will constantly have books to talk about because I don't read at the same pace that some other booktubers read at. I only read about like 4 to 5 books a month, so I can't really do massive wrap-ups because they would be 2 minutes long. I also have a very bad memory for books, so if you notice that I don't remember what books are about, it's because I don't. But yeah, thank you so much. Hopefully see you soon. And if you want to, subscribe, maybe? I don't know. But I will see you soon, hopefully. Fingers crossed.